Welcome to the fourth and final part of my World Championship report. I'm really pleased that so many of you have been enjoying it and letting me know. Before we get started today, I just want to remind you there's a few spaces left on my coaching academy. I coach people from national champions right down to people who have just started the sport. If you want coaching from a familiar face, all my details are in the description. All right, let's find out all about fletchings. We're going to move on to the other part of the arrow. The fletchings, you've already touched on that. I was surprised by this result.
Okay.
It wasn't as dominating as I thought.
Interesting.
But it was still 23 of them shot spin wings. Traditional, good old, standard spin wings. But there was 8 people in there with jet 6s as well.
Okay.
And most of the time I could see, you could see there was some writing on there so I could, and then when they do the zoom in, yeah, I could see they were. And there was one who I didn't know whose fletchings they were.
Yeah. Maybe
because
they're kind of hard to tell, aren't they?
There's a selection of spin, but just to be clear, they're all spin type fletchings. But there was one that I didn't know what it was. 8 of them were jet 6 and still coming in strong with 23 out of the 32. It's spin wings, the old-fashioned, boring choice. Is still undeniably the go-to choice. You know, you've got to have a reason not to go for them, and normally there isn't one. And yet, I don't think the average club archer realizes they're still absolutely the choice of champions.
Yeah, and I would argue on that one because a lot of club archers have said to me before that, like, yes, they are the best ones, and I agree with what you're saying, but they just crumple so much, and because they because I need to fletch them so often, like I go for, like, some people have said they go for spider veins because they're stiffer and they don't crumple, or maybe I don't know how jet 6s are with that. But different to what you mentioned about the nocks, I would agree with the nocks, where like some people should definitely shoot pin nocks. I don't think that's a good reason for club archers to not pick spin wings.
Okay.
Because the problem with, I'd be interested to hear what you think about this, but the problem with the stiffer veins that don't get damaged as easily is you end up just shooting them when they're a bit damaged, and that's kind of really bad because that can really...
And one of the zoom-ins, they zoomed in on this, I can't remember if it's purple or red, jet 6, and the top fletching had a huge crease in it, to the point where I'm like, I would not be shooting that in my World Championship semi-final. I couldn't believe that archer, maybe it happened on the previous end and they missed it, and maybe that if the cameraman genuinely spotted it and that's why he zoomed in, he deserves a bonus, because I was shocked. The annoying thing is I can't remember where that arrow went when she shot it. Yeah. I've watched too many hours of footage today. I should have looked. Maybe it went in the low 8, but it probably went in the 10. But it was, yeah. You say I could see the big crease in the fletching there.
Yeah, for me, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's, broadly speaking, there's always going to be exceptions, but broadly, the stiffer the fletching, the less forgiving I found it.
Yeah.
So it might group, if I'm going to do 6 perfect shots, I might even say I'll group tighter with the stiff fletchings. But when I do the bad shots, and really all of our tuning is about trying to make the bad shots closer to the middle, that's where I see the difference. So actually, if I'm just doing good shots, I don't really notice much difference. It's on the bad shots, and luckily I've done lots of those, so I could test it thoroughly. And that was for me. So that's why I would go for the softer spin wings.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people need to get more particular about that. I see people are really particular about, like, I was going to say nocks, but actually some people aren't particular enough about that. But like, people need to be really particular, like worry less about whether you're shooting crazy recurve limbs, worry more about if your nocks are like they've been hit and they've got a dink in them, or worry about if your fletches are like ripped and torn and bent, because like that you just hemorrhage points with that.
I want to say that's one of the easy wins. I think every national team that I've joined, and I've done an audit of their arrows, I've always not been happy with the quality standard people have kept their arrows to. I've always been able to pick the arrows out of their quiver, look through the nocks, and pull off 3 or 4 that they shouldn't be shooting. It is an area that people, for the money it costs, you really should be putting your time and focus into that, you know. there's no more important piece of plastic than that little tiny nock. If that's not the same as the last one, they're not going to go in the same place.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you about... Sorry, we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but did I ever tell you about the arrow testing I did with Basically, I had a dozen arrows and then I found a dodgy nock. Did I ever tell you about that?
No.
So basically, I'd selected from 3 dozen X10s, I'd selected my best dozen X10s. Mm-hmm. And then, as the final test before a selection shoot, I shot them fletched, nocked, everything. And I shot basically a series of 720s. And I plotted each arrow's dozen score. So every arrow had a dozen score.
That's
and I plotted it. It didn't take a while. And then I plotted it on a a target plot anyway, just on on paper, this one. And basically, every arrow, when I was shooting, I did like however many rounds this is, each arrow out of the 12, it was like 112, 113, 114, 115, 113, 114. One of the arrows, the dozen score was 98. 98. And I didn't even realise when I shot all of these, however many 720s that is, I didn't even realise, because then when I looked at the plot, the group was like this, and it was like 3 9s high right, and and then 9 8s high right in a group like better than any of the other arrows. Basically, the group was just like incredible, but just
it's a shame
in that
it wasn't
corner.
in the middle, but
yeah, just in that corner.
What did you find?
And I looked at the arrow. I was like, this is one of the best arrows. When I did the bear shaft selection at 30, it was great. When I did all this, and I looked at the Fletches, it's great. I changed the nock, 115. And the nock,
could you see
visibly,
anything on it?
No. Visibly, the nock was perfect. So this is another example of even if there's a visible nock that's doing that, this is why if you have a dink on the nock or you've had a slight mark, definitely change it. And then this is also why I think you would do this as well. You always change your nocks before a competition.
I was just in my head getting ready to say that, rule of thumb or the rule of best practice is, on competition morning, put all new nocks on.
Yeah.
Keep the old ones for practice the following weeks. We're not asking you to throw away 12 good nocks. Just keep them in a practice bag and a brand new bag. There's no easier way to lose points, and there's no minimally expensive way to make sure you're maximizing your points.
But since I did that, I changed my thing because I used to just put the new nocks on the night before the competition and shoot them. And then since I did that test, I thought, and then I did the test and I was like, So now I did it a few days before, so that official practice day, you shoot the nocks, you see them, and then you check, and then I'm like, okay, they're fine. Okay. But I thought that was an interesting point with the nocks there. Slightly off tangent, but...
That really is, but it shows attention to detail is what it takes to get to the top. And if you don't have the time to do all of the testing like Ash has done or like these champions you've done,
understandable.
I think there's a lot we can learn by just taking the boring choice and going with some of the equipment here that is so dominant, so standard priced, and really there's no reason why most club archers shouldn't use this rather than spending their time and effort looking for some secret.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting.
Thank you very much, Ash. I enjoyed that.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Parts 1, 2, and 3 are already up on YouTube and they're linked here at the end. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. Every subscriber helps me just climb up that ranking list. All right, good shooting and see you all soon.